as we are getting closer and closer to the release date of episode 5. So this Friday, Glitch is coming out with new teasers, like their life depends on it, and I'm honestly living for that, especially now that we are after the trailer video, which was kind of a mess, and it took like 60 rewatches for me to notice certain parts in the trailer, but yeah, here we are. This video is basically a recap of all the teasers so far, and based on those, I'm theorizing about the possible outcomes of episode 5, so stay with me until the end. So Glitch just shared this teaser of Jax where we can see him in the savannah and he's pointing the gun directly into the camera. Now as for who is that he's actually pointing the gun at, we can only guess, and based on the teaser image that is on the wackywash.com, we could guess that it might be Gangle. And I think it would make perfect sense, because in episode 4 Gangle kinda punished him for not doing the things she asked him to do by sending him to training, and then Jax also always loved messing with Gangle, even outside of that, so I think it's possible that Jax and Gangle could go to the safari adventure, and then episode 2's events could happen again, where he already pointed a gun at Gangle so that he could manipulate her. But the wackywash.com also updated, and now there's a teaser of Kane with some Morse code, and his message is really interesting. If we translate the message, it literally says SOS CQD, I am losing my mind, also hi. And CQD used to be a distress signal for ships in distress, and it was later replaced by SOS. So yeah, another proof that Kane is definitely gonna lose it in episode 5, and the glitches and him being sort of angry at the circus members before was foreshadowing of him getting slowly corrupted. So in my opinion, we can be sure that the constant adventure and location switches are gonna be the result of Kane glitching. And this teaser also supports this claim, because in the previous episode the portal worked just fine, and it didn't just slurp up the circus members like this before. And the circus members also look confused, and maybe they didn't want to go on the adventure this time. Not only Zubul, but none of them, and that is why Kane had to teleport them to the location by force. But this again shows that Kane's idea of entertaining the circus members is absolutely two-dimensional, and his programming only goes as far as adventures equal entertainment. And he doesn't look concerned that the circus members are being forced to go on the adventure, so I think he's only getting more and more cruel, and obviously not on purpose, but the gap between him and the characters keep deepening, and that is why he hurts them more by not being understanding and assertive. Now of course he's an AI, so I'm not sure how much we can expect from him, but one thing's for sure, after this episode the circus members are gonna be so pissed at Kane, like dude did a lot of stupid things, but these never-ending adventures are gonna for sure make the circus members angrier than ever. Which brings me to the whole thing with those weird alternate versions of the characters in the stadium scene. So instead of just calling them evil versions or like past selves or something, there's actually this theory that makes way more sense, and is that these aren't just random versions of the characters, they are what happens when their ego and identity get flipped. So like all the parts of themselves they normally try to hide or control, and everything they use to protect themselves kind of gets stripped away. So basically like the raw version of who they already are underneath everything. Like with Jax, we know he acts like he doesn't care and he's just there to mess with people and be smug and unreadable, but if his anti-version really is the opposite of that, then we are probably gonna see all the insecurity and anxiety that he's been suppressing the whole time. And that's why he looked so timid in that quick shot, like he couldn't even meet anyone's eyes. It's probably not just a personality swap, but more like the stuff he's scared of showing, and now he has no choice but to look at it during normal circumstances. And Ragatha, yeah, that version of her in the teaser is kinda scary. The red button eye and her facial expression, it doesn't really feel like a villain arc, but instead like repressed rage finally slipping out after being bottled up for who knows how long. Cause Ragatha always acts so sweet and supportive, but we've seen her cracks. We've seen her jealous, we've seen her snap for half a second and then pushing back down, so if her flipped version is just her with all the resentment and frustration pushed to the surface, then this episode might be the one where she finally breaks a little. But what's even more interesting is that there's no anti-Gangle, at least not in the scenes we've seen so far. And maybe that's not an accident. Maybe it's cause Gangle doesn't need a flipped version, cause we already see both sides of her all the time. She's already got the comedy mask and the tragedy mask, literally, and she switches between them depending on how she's feeling. She doesn't fake being happy like Ragatha or hide behind jokes like Jax. And that might mean that she's the only one who doesn't have something buried deep that's gonna erupt when things get too real. So yeah, if that's what's going on, then this whole stadium thing isn't just a fun what-if adventure. It's like a psychological breakdown disguised as a softball softball game. And if they really have to fight or interact with these versions of themselves, it's gonna mess with them in a way they can't just reset from. Especially if they can't tell where the line is anymore between who they are and who they are afraid of being. And the thing is, it doesn't even stop with the softball stadium. That might be the first place they land, but based on the trailer, they're gonna get tossed around like ragdolls through at least 3 or 4 more locations, and each one just gets more messed up than the last. Which is already weird, because usually there's just one themed adventure per episode, and now suddenly we're switching from a sports field to a safari, to a bar, to a presidential office, and maybe even back to the circus ground. Like, yeah, this isn't really normal. Kane is most likely spiraling and dragging everyone down with him. But the safari one definitely looks like it's supposed to be Jax's domain. He's got that explorer outfit and the little gun, and he looks like he's actually enjoying himself, which is a red flag in itself, but it doesn't last, because then we see him again in the office scene. So that's probably when the glitching starts to get out of hand. Like the boundaries between each adventure are just collapsing and everything's bleeding into everything else. And none of it makes sense anymore, and Kane isn't doing anything to stop it, or maybe he can't. And I also can't stop thinking about that shot of Pomni at the desk in the presidential office where she's disarming a bomb. Like, why? Why is Pomni, who's been hanging on by a thread since episode 1, suddenly the president and in charge of keeping the circus from literally blowing up? If these adventures are meant to reflect something internal, then maybe this one is what Pomni thinks she could have been. Like if she hadn't clicked on that weird link or whatever happened and joined the circus, maybe she would have been powerful, respected, someone who actually had control. And now Kane's just dangling that version of her in front of her, like, look what you gave up, look what you could have had. Which is honestly kind of evil, even if it's not intentional, cause yeah, it would destroy her. And then there's Zubul, who I'm also kinda concerned about, cause we already know that they hate adventures, and if they had the opportunity, they just not go at all. So the fact that we're seeing them show up in multiple locations, including that mafia-style bar, where they're apparently the bartender now, could be a bad sign. Cause that means they are not just refusing to participate anymore, they are stuck just like the others, being dragged from one chaotic adventure to another without any say in it. But what's even more interesting is that later we see them in the total empty space, just them, Kane and Bubble, and it kinda looks like the void, which makes me think that Zubul finally broke down mid-adventure and Kane just pulled them out entirely. Either as a punishment or maybe just to get them out of his way. And it's kinda weird because Kane used to get annoyed with Zubul, sure, but he at least tried to make the adventures kind of tolerable. And now he's just getting them out into the void. Like, I don't even know what Kane wants anymore. But it seems like that if Kane is starting to glitch so hard that he's not even pretending to care anymore, then something really bad is coming. And not just for Zubul, but for everyone. And what really gets me though is that we're not just watching the characters suffer in separate little chunks anymore. They are starting to overlap. Like the trailer shows Jax and Pomni together a lot. They even show up at the bar scene together looking completely exhausted, like they've both just had the worst days of their lives. And I honestly think that's where Jax might actually try to talk to her again. Because he already kinda tried back in episode 4 and Pomni didn't really give him anything. But now that they've been through whatever this episode turns out to be, maybe he thinks she'll actually listen. Or maybe he just doesn't have anyone else left who doesn't hate him. Which then ties back to the Ragata stuff, because oh my god, if that scene at the circus grounds is really the 3 of them, Pomni, Jax and Ragata, having some kind of confrontation, then yeah, that's gonna go interestingly. So yeah, it's not just one silly setup after another this time, because every new location feels like it's tightening the screws a little more, pushing the characters further out of their comfort zones and dragging up stuff they've been trying so hard not to deal with. And by the end of it, I don't think it's just the glitching that's gonna be irreversible. I think something in their dynamic is gonna break and it's not getting put back together. But let me know what you think about the teasers and which adventure you think is gonna hit the hardest down in the comments. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.